Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school, and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Tamu Thomas, who is the founder of the brand Live 360, which is all about finding everyday joy. This resonated with me so much. I really am not good with that pressurized environment of building up to one day where you've got to have the best day of your life and everything's going to be perfect and everybody's going to be happy for those 24 hours. I'm much better when things are consistent and I'm really enjoying the smaller moments or the bigger moments, but just having those lovely bubbles of moments every single day. And she does so many things. She's got a podcast, she's got a clothing line, she does retreats. She'd also like to open a shop, which she talks much more about in the podcast. So if you want to come and join in the conversation afterwards, because we cover a lot in this one, please come over to Instagram at Nicky Raby, or you can find the show notes, nickyraby.com/podcast. And I've said it now, I would like to have 1 million plays by December 2018. So if you've been enjoying this for a while and you want to share it or tell somebody, please rate, review and subscribe and share it with a friend. I love these conversations that I'm making. I want to continue making them and I would love your help and your support if you wouldn't mind. Also as well, if there's something that I can do for you, please let me know. I never want to be that person who's just asking all of the time. So feel free to email me hello@nickyraby.com within reason, obviously. I don't want you thinking that I'm just going to send you a house in the post or anything like that. Anyway, enough from me. Here's the episode. Enjoy. Hi, Tamu. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. So let's start with you. What do you do? What's your business?
Well, so my name is Tamu Thomas and I have very recently, on the 1st of May, launched a lifestyle brand called 360. And it is a lifestyle brand that is aimed at women who are Generation X. And if you don't know what that means, that pretty much means women that are in their late 30s and 40s. And the core aim of the brand is to provide women with products and experiences that assist them to integrate wellness with their daily lives.
Oh, happy days. Yeah. I think you're so right, because I think sometimes we're spoken, you only have to flick through a magazine and you just see this glorious holiday that you're supposed to look forward to, 10 years from now. And actually we need it now. We need the stuff now that is going to make us feel good. So we can crack on and do what we need to do.
Absolutely.
How did your business journey start? Where did that originate from? Have you always been an entrepreneur?
I have always wanted to work for myself. I didn't know what that would be. My background is social work, so I kind of assumed that I would have my own kind of social work related business. And then in 2010, maybe it was in 2009, my aunt came back from Sierra Leone. My family are from Sierra Leone, and she bought me a maxi dress, a really beautiful pink tie-dye maxi dress. And every time I wore it, people would go on and on about the dress, how much they liked it, where I got it from. And so I thought, maybe I should, the idea of just going out and buying some dresses and bringing them back was not enough for me. I like to create things. And I thought, maybe I should design some dresses, get them made in Sierra Leone using cloth from Sierra Leone, and sell them over here, like have, clothes that we would wear every day made out of African textiles. So my naivety, I thought, that's great, I'm going to do it. Jumped on a plane, went to Sierra Leone, had some clothes made, and it was a bloody disaster. It was a disaster because I had the faith that people would understand what I wanted and that they would be able to produce what I wanted.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
Yeah, and I didn't really, if I'm honest, my understanding of Sierra Leonean culture was based on my diasporan experience of Sierra Leone culture, and that was, really hardworking parents, really hardworking family that did things by the book, tried their best. So I expected that, and what I got was people that were lacking opportunities, and therefore when something that looked lucrative presented itself, they didn't even try their best. They just did what they could to get the money, which meant that I was left with garments that were ill-fitting, etc. So that didn't quite work out. I gave it a couple of two goes in Sierra Leone. The quality just wasn't very good. And then I evolved, but the business wasn't really working in the way that I wanted to because I had severe imposter syndrome. I'm of West African heritage. We are very attached to qualifications. The bigger the qualification, the better. And I didn't come from a fashion background, so I was listening to people all over the place rather than doing what I really wanted to do. So it didn't work out in the way that I wanted to, but I knew that I would revisit it, just not in the way that I had done it then.
That's such a point, actually, about kind of being really clear in terms of your direction. I know the first few times where, I've had people to help me, I haven't employed a nanny, but, if I've had the first time somebody came to, I think I was moving house and, I hired somebody to come and help clean because it was a mess, to be honest. I was one of those people who was just left. And I sort of did that kind of, I don't mind, whatever you want to do. And it turns out they didn't really mind either. So they kind of buggered off after half an hour. And I think sometimes it's that thing is, I don't know if it's a female thing or that sense of just sort of dipping your toe in. Sometimes to actually give the direction and actually say what you want can feel quite challenging.
Absolutely, because I know for myself, for a number of reasons, I had internalized a message that I couldn't have what I wanted. And it was almost a sort of settling mentality. And there was a sense that within myself, that I should be grateful for what I've got. Yes. And not necessarily, I was very apprehensive. I was very fearful of striving for what I really wanted because I was worried about the change that would follow pursuing my dreams, I guess.
Yes, because actually it's much easier to sit on the sidelines and watch and sort of do that thing of, it could have been me. And, the amount of times when I've said, I'm an actor, and somebody said, Steve's wife's girlfriend, well, that doesn't make actual sense. Her neighbour was going to go on X Factor. And I was like, well, I'm not really a singer, but there we go. But in the end, they changed their mind and they didn't do it because, Simon Cowell is whatever. And it becomes so far-fetched, but actually saying, no, I am doing this, they suddenly don't like it. They don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because a lot of us sort of sleepwalk through life, and a lot of us are worried about taking leaps of faith and taking risks to do what we really want. We then project that onto other people.
Yes.
So by you saying I'm an actor, there's almost a feeling of, well, who do you think you are? So, and if you're not, if you haven't done the work to be completely solid in owning your title and, not playing small, which really stuck with me when I was listening to your Instagram story about it, then you can very easily be swayed and then start to make yourself small, not actually fully commit to what it is that you want to do, and then it doesn't work out. Well, that's what happened to me. So I have to own the fact that I wasn't ready. I hadn't done the work that would enable me to be ready.
How did you practically move into that headspace? And, as much as we'd like to think, well, I just went behind like a 90s makeover show. I just went behind the curtain. I had a word with myself and then I came out looking fabulous. What did that process look like? And how did you navigate it? How did you know what the next steps were to take?
Well, I'd say it is a continuous, daily, depending on the day, moment by moment practice, having a word with myself. But I'm able to have that word because, to be quite frank, open and transparent, towards the end of last year, so my career was local authority social work. And to be, even more clear, I still do social work as a freelancer, but I don't do it for local authorities. I do independently commissioned pieces of work where I undertake an assessment, I produce my report, I make my recommendations, and then I go, because I'm at the very beginning stage of this business. I'm self-funded. I have a child to look after. And EDF Energy doesn't care about my hopes and dreams. So, so there's that. But local authority social work, for me, became a real drain. I felt absolutely depleted, and I kept ignoring it because it is a field whereby if you're not running yourself ragged, if you're not constantly working late, if you're not constantly typing frantically and rushing off to appointments, it looks like you're not doing your job, because that is the culture regardless of where you're working.
Yeah, busy is celebrated.
Exactly. And I got to a point, and also I was always very mindful that I'm working with people, and it was a huge responsibility, and it wasn't ever a job that I liked. It was a job that I was passionate about, but that passion, I'm quite a giving person, and that job will take and take and take, and the more you can do, the more that it takes. So to fast forward, I got to a point where I was becoming ill, but couldn't understand why I was becoming ill. It wasn't uncommon for me to have a cold that lasted from September to March, and it would spike with bronchitis, laryngitis, flu, sinusitis, and it would be a revolving cycle.
Gosh, your body tells you everything, doesn't it?
I still ignored it because I told myself I was being weak, I was being lazy, I had to keep going. And then when I wasn't listening to that, I started to experience, and it wasn't fleeting low mood like we all have. It was a long, dull undercurrent that just, I felt incredibly stuck. I felt like I was being pulled down, and I was really struggling to find things that I appreciated about myself. But I continued, I kept going. And the long and short of it was I started to experience anxiety, but I was so wrapped up in what I was doing, I didn't realise that it was anxiety. And then one day, I had experienced this before, but not in such a profound way. I didn't realise at the time that I had a panic attack. And considering my background was working with mental health all the time, I didn't need any more than that to know that I had to change things. And I was so focused on what I didn't want and what I didn't like, I didn't really remember what I did like and what I did want.
Yes.
So that experience led me to think, well, what is it that I do want? And I was going to have therapy, but the waiting list was absolutely ages. I was going to have private therapy, but because I felt so shaky in my mental and physical health, I just had to cut back on my work. So I literally just couldn't afford to have private therapy. But then I had coaching, and it transformed the way I think. And I think that me being close to what for me was breaking points opened me up to things that previously I would have bristled and I would have thought was nonsense.
Yeah.
It really opened me up to self-development, self-help, self-therapy, whatever you want to call it, in a way that I had never been open to before. It really opened me up to remembering that I wasn't this analytical, hard person, but actually I had masked my sensitivity because of experiences I'd had in life. I'd masked my creativity, and I was not allowing myself to feel my dreams. I was just totally disconnected from myself. And the coaching really brought me back to that. It really helped me to, the coaching and not that long before that, I had ended a relationship, and that relationship, as much as it definitely wasn't for me, it was a real mirror to me, and I was observing loads of qualities about myself that I didn't like, and I got wrapped up in the diatribe of what I didn't like rather than looking at it in context with what I did like about myself and seeing how I could use my strengths to sort of outshine the shadows.
That's so key in terms of breaking those patterns of what you see, because it's one of those moments that if you sometimes, if somebody mentions a yellow car, and you might be doing this if you're listening to the conversation in the car, suddenly that's what you see, and you see it, and your brain is trained in that sort of way. And so if we're not conscious with our thoughts, if we're sort of getting stuck and getting in our own way, and I've frequently done this a lot over my lifetime, you can find all of those reasons to follow that up and to provide the evidence. Those moments, if you ever you fancied a little cheeky little day off school or something, I don't feel well, oh, I'm so sick, or I've got a bad stomach, I've got a bad headache, even if you were sort of exaggerating slightly, not that I ever did this because I was a model student, I'm just talking about a friend that might have done this.
Pinocchio, your nose is growing.
But by the end of it, God, you felt ill. You felt rubbish, and then you needed another day off. And by that point, your parents are like, "Oh, what do you want now? What's going on with you?" But I think also, we get stuck in life. We would like to be living these Zen, beautiful versions of ourselves, but also the practicalities come into place a lot. And the fact that you're saying that you do other work as well has to be said, because I think so many times we're seeing these, 90-second transformations where suddenly people have got these booming businesses and they're doing wonderful things, but that is actually very rare. And I've seen that in terms of the acting industry, that pluck from obscurity. He just saw me across the room. I was sitting in a bar drinking a cocktail and he knew I was a star. And I'm saying he, of course, because that's how the story always goes. But those are very few and far between. Absolutely. And it does take time to figure it out. And it's important, especially when you have children or people who depend on you, to give yourself that buffer, going, oh, I don't want to get to the point where it's like, oh, sorry, you're not hungry, are you? Because actually we're not eating until a week on Tuesday. You want to make sure that you're still in a position of power, because actually there's nothing more desperate than a desperate life coach.
Well,
I don't want to be phoning people going, are you sure you don't need coaching? I've seen a part of your life that just seems a little bit out of sync. I saw that post on
Instagram. I think you need a session.
Yeah, Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, and it has been the most emotionally challenging, but the most liberating experience ever. And my relationship with Nicola, A Life More Inspired, enabled me. When I was talking about all my fears and I can't do this, I can't do that, she said, "But Tamu, those are just stories, and you can tell yourself a different story, and you can choose to believe in a different story." And I was like, "Oh, of course they are. Like, this is my belief right now, but previously my belief was something else." And that really put me in a space where I realized that I do have control. I don't have to live in an environment where my life trajectory is dependent on somebody who gives me a contract that says I'm worth X amount of money per annum, and that they pay to me 12 times per year on the 25th of every month, and that tells me I am good enough or not good enough at my job, or whatever the case may be. I just thought that's not what I want for myself. I've always been very clear and keen to be a living legacy for my daughter. I really want her to know that she can live life on her own terms, but she's got to work at it. So I did a lot of work with Nicola in her mastermind group and my own self work, and developed an understanding of myself. I was able to own, the shit bits that we often try to park away. And for the first time ever, I was able to sit comfortably right in the middle of myself. And that's where I got the name 360 from, because being in the center, I was able to spin around and have a 360-degree view of myself and not be scared of the bits that aren't as nice to tell people about or aren't as nice to admit to myself. And it was so freeing.
And to take that time to just check in and go, oh, this is actually what it is. This and take the time to properly look around. Sometimes you can have that moment if you buy a new piece of furniture that I end up picking up random bits of, whatever else, going, how long's that been there? Oh, it's been there for 7 years, and you haven't even noticed it because again, you're not aware. You're going through the motions and hoping for the best and just keeping going because that's what you do. And
literally.
It's fascinating, that moment of taking some time to have a good beak around, because actually some of the things, like you mentioned about the stories or what people told you, if you bumped into those, sometimes they're not even your own stories about yourself. They're things that people told you or expected, or they may have even just been a flippant comment. I remember a boy saying to me once, yeah, you'd be all right if you were blonde, but you're not. Full stop. And I just
agape.
Said,
my mouth is agape.
Yeah, and I just you'd be all right if you were blonde, but all right is not something to strive for, really. I sort of want to be more than all right, really. Exactly. I want to be a bit of all right, if you know what I mean. It's just, and I think that is so sort of layered. If I could go, I think he's in prison now, to be honest. But I think that if you delved into that, he wasn't even for himself thinking, I want a woman who is glorious and wonderful and nurturing and all the rest of it. He just wants a woman to be all right.
Yeah. And blonde.
Yeah. And it's just, and I think at the time I just sort of did that. Yes, well, I'm not even that keen on you anyway, or did some awful comeback. But so I did. Yeah, oh, fine, and just try to, give him the middle finger and walk away. I probably wouldn't have even done that, actually, because, I probably would have hung around and gone, well, maybe I could diet, maybe I should. But I think it is those moments of those limitations as well from people who like to put you in your box or a box. And I think that sense of really stepping into having everything that you want. I think often we are taught that we can be either or. You're, maybe with the education and the onus and the weight that is placed on that, you're either really intelligent and well educated and academic, or you're creative and frivolous and just having a lovely time. Mm-hmm. You can't be like, oh, on a Wednesday I'm really creative and on Thursday I'm, working on my PhD.
Mm-hmm. Because, people don't appreciate that can be the fullness, that can be your full expression, that you should just be one thing. And I think that even things like the financial crash in 2007, 2008, that was a very clear example of why you should actually have more than one sort of pathway available to you.
Yes.
Those days of being, I work for the council and that's where I'm going to work forever. I don't think that that's a reality for many of us these days.
No.
I think, as Emma Gannon has coined the term multi-hyphen career, or whatever it is, I think that is a much more realistic way to view yourself, because if you are a whole human being, you're not just one thing.
Yes, and that sense of being able to bring a different flavour. Sometimes I've been at some organisations that I won't mention on here, but I'm sure if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll be able to find it. I've got a different name on LinkedIn, so you'll probably never find them. But those moments where people just stand around and they're all looking at each other and nobody can make a decision and everything has to be signed off and go through things.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really awful, because it makes me want to be a sassy teenager and go, can somebody make an effing decision, please?
Exactly.
Because
coming from working for local authorities, it could cost the best part of £1,000 just to get somebody to sign off something for £50. Because when you think about all the people's time involved, me drafting the thingy as to why we need it, my manager having a look and approving it, going to panel with a group of people sitting around a table asking you questions for 20 odd minutes as to why you need this 50 quid, then it going to whoever it needs to sign it off, but they're not around, so you've got to go back later on. If you calculate the time and money, well, time is money for the sake of 50 quid.
Yeah, so true. Whereas we will go, I'll go in the living room and say to Matt, we're starting a podcast, ready? And he's going,
exactly.
Sorry, what did you say? What? Are we doing this before dinner or not? And, oh God, and I think this is the thing sometimes, that just that sense, we spoke about it before we started recording, but that sense of what that does to your body, how it opens you up and it makes you feel alive.
Yeah. Totally. And peaceful at the same time.
Yes. And I think there's this thing, certainly motherhood has given me a new lease of life. I kind of realised that I've been faffing around for my 20s or not showing up, or, that video that I made about playing small. Yeah. I made it because I needed to hear it. It's not enough, and I'm learning the lesson that I need to. But there were so many times where I thought, oh, this wasn't for me. But I would love to know, along this multi-hyphen method type situation, which I sort of wanted more from Emma, but I think I need to write the book because I've got the coaching element in it. And but the book part 2 for me is, so how do you do that practically, and not in a sort of, you just write 20 letters per day and say what you're good at. How do you get to a point where you can say, I am actually doing this and it feels scary and I've never looked at myself in this way before, but I know that it's my time. I'm giving you some big questions here.
Yeah. Well, I am very open to things. So previously I'd forced myself into a really logical, analytical space, which isn't natural to me. but I had adopted that because in social work, you're always reading between the lines and analysing information. And in my sort of journey after feeling really shaky in terms of my mental health, I was open to things that I wasn't previously. But I'm waffling now. The long and short of it is, the practical things that enabled me to be scared but remember and tap into the faith that I have in myself are manifold. So they are affirmations, affirmations that I say out loud, affirmations that I have on loop in my head. My main one is I got a deck of Nicola. I keep talking about A Life More Inspired, but she was really crucial in helping me flip the script. So one of her affirmation cards says, "Today I will be my own best friend." And literally, I try to talk to myself and give myself the pep talks I do in the way that I do to my best friends. I also remember things by using very tangible, practical things, like I have a blessings jar. So I literally write down a scrap of paper, something good that's happened today. I'm looking at it at the moment. One of the things that's facing outward, it was literally, I was looking after my godson and my daughter and nephew, and they were singing and rapping, and my nephew was one at the time, and he really firmly believed he was singing what my godson and my daughter, that was such a beautiful memory. And I wrote that not as a, so it looks like, oh, it's a blessings jar, but it's about an external thing. Yes. But whenever I read that, I can remember the feeling. And I was able to do that in the middle of the day because I decided to stop working full time for other people and decided to work for myself. Yes. So I can evoke those sorts of things. I journal. So quite often what I realized was that I was a very judgmental person, and I'm working on that. But when I actually stripped back in journaling, all of that judgment was about myself, and I was just projecting it elsewhere. So I use my journal. I use my journals, I should say. So I journal.
Yes, the 108 notebooks I've got just, goodness, by my bedside.
It's ridiculous. I'm like, my daughter is obsessed with stationery, and I'm always saying, oh, you're wasting money. I don't give you pocket money so that you can buy a new thing from Smiggle every week or whatever. The amount of notebooks I've got, and journals and planners and this and that. But journaling has really been one of the cornerstones in me being able to change my internal dialogue. Yes. And put down on, I don't just use it as a dumping ground, but when I do dump, as the information is flowing down from my head through my hand onto that piece of paper, I start to see the stories for what they are, and then I can start to flip them. And so in my practical daily life, that just lodges in my mind. So when I'm doing things, like when I'm criticizing myself, when I'm telling myself I can't do things, I'm like, oh, Tamu, you're doing it again. And then I've got the other things that I can do about it. So whether that is journal about why I can and should and deserve and can have these things, or if it is an affirmation that I will repeat all the time. Even things like in the morning, try as best as I can to start my day with my feet on the ground, just telling myself today I'll be my own best friend, and really being clear about how I want to feel about the day. And I listen to lots of podcasts, lots of audiobooks, and I read all the time because I just need that constant trickle so I don't fall back into my default. And I know that I need that because that was my default from the age of 7 to the age of 39. So it's going to take a lot to chip away. But because I am now more self-aware, and because I have the opportunity to be still every day, I can really connect with how I'm feeling. So where previously I would automatically be judgmental and it would just fall out of my mouth, I'm a lot more aware. So as it starts to bubble up, I can catch it before it even comes out of my mouth. Yes. And I can have a word with myself and change that and be more compassionate and understanding. And when I'm more compassionate and understanding with other people, I can then in turn be more compassionate and understanding with myself, and it just becomes a loop.
Yes. And it's funny that we have to almost now, I mean, I'm sure the kids of today will be very aware of meditation and mindfulness and all these sort of newfangled phenomenons, as people would say. But certainly we weren't given these tools at school. I certainly wasn't. It was a sort of, you just need to pull your socks up and keep
literally
going.
Pull yourself together. Yeah.
Pull those slouch socks from the 80s up and sort yourself out. But it was that sense,
and it was very much strong.
Yes,
be strong. And then there's the added layer of the strong black woman stereotype. So it was also be strong in that way. It was also be strong because I'm representing my whole entire race, and every
no pressure.
Every black person by my actions. And it was just chipping away at that. It was chipping away at what I had internalized as being strong, because what I had internalized from the women that I grew up around, a lot of them ended up being single women in their own right, or single mothers. And they, from what I could see on the outside, blossomed. They got better cars, they got bigger houses, they were able to manage a bigger mortgage, they were able to have additional properties, they were able to invest. So what I saw on the outside of these women standing independently, being really strong, they don't need anybody, that is what I saw. But what I didn't realise behind that was that these women did that out of necessity. Right. It wasn't out of choice. And as a woman in my own right, realising that they had to do that, it wasn't a lifestyle choice, they had to do that to survive, I started to realise that a lot of my behaviour and a lot of what I was seeing was surviving. And I thought, but I know that I have innate qualities. I know that despite what I told myself, I was good at my job. I know that I make connections with people. I know that I have the natural ability to make people feel at ease and comfortable. So I had to really change what I was seeing as a strength and realizing that that was survival. And in order for me to be able to live the life that I've always known I'm capable of, and in order for me to have a business that doesn't just make me money, but also is of service to people in a way that I don't think is being done currently, and particularly not with women of my age group, I had to modify what I had learnt and develop a set of tools that would assist me to shift from surviving to thriving.
Because you can have both. You can have a thriving, beautiful business that is valuable and helpful and useful. And again, I think that sense of, the money, you're either chasing the money or, you're, working for Oxfam and giving everything away. And actually, if you can't, there is a way that you can do both brilliantly.
Yeah. And I really am invested in us knowing that, because whether you're a mother or not, we are nurturing the following generations, whether they are of our loins or whether they are within our workplaces, whether they are people within our immediate communities or in the wider community. We are setting the tone for what's to come.
Yes.
So I think that it is really important for us to be able to embrace that and to shift from that surviving and knowing that having a life where we create abundance isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're chasing money, because if you are working in a manner where you are in alignment, that flow should come. It's an ebb and it's a flow, but hopefully it will flow more in your direction than it ebbs away. But you can also be very mindful with how you live your life, so that the ebb, the sort of transactions moving away from you, are actually transactions and interactions that are empowering and enriching. So whether that is empowering and enriching other people by the way you spend your time with them, the way you give your time to them, or whether it's empowering and enriching because you have the financial means to be able to spend your money in ways that is emitting and distributing your money as energy.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Because I know certainly in the early stages of my mothering journey, I didn't plan as I was fiddling around with fonts and graphics and making my website look all jazzy just before I had my son. And I was like, what am I doing? Nobody's looking at that stuff. I need to future-proof my business, which was, only a tiny trick that I missed by any means. But I realised in the first few months, because, I was living on savings and things like that, actually, when I don't earn well for what I do, or when I feel like I'm in survival mode or just scraping by, actually nobody wins, because I'm certainly not the best version of myself in that stressed, overstretched way. And likewise, I'm not the most patient version or the most abundant. And, I don't want to go out for a coffee and think, I hope they bloody pay because I'm not buying them. I don't want to do that. I want to go, let me buy your coffee, let me do this.
Yes.
I don't want to be like, I hope they don't ask me for the
irritated
£2.40.
But that is the reality.
Right.
And the reality is also, children can be extremely annoying, but their level of annoyance varies depending on where you are at. I don't want to be snapping at my daughter for being annoying in a way that she should be, because at her developmental stage, that's what she's supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And I've had conversations before, and I've really thought hard about what I want for my daughter. And we talk often about bringing up our children and raising our children. And I just think to myself, I don't want to bring her up. I want to love her up. And for me to love her up, I need to be in a space where I'm not irritated by nonsense because I've deprived myself of time to do the little things that I need to do. And although they're little things, they have a really big impact on my life and how I show up in the world and for myself.
And because they are little things to the outside world, people are not going to notice them and pick you up on that and saying, I think you've only had 3 cups of tea today. I don't think you've had the 5 that you actually require to function on the planet, because it's such a small thing. Whereas, I don't think you've had, I do shower every morning, but I don't think you've had one of those, extra long skin crinkling baths that I know that you need in order to zone out.
Yeah.
People are not keeping a watch because everybody's trying to keep up their own, version of self-care. Yeah. So we have to, and I live with 2 boys as well, one of them is 2, so he's not going to say, Mummy, when was the last time you got a pedicure? Because, what is going on with your feet? He's not going to do that.
No. And I guess we need to do that for ourselves and
be okay with doing that and saying, I need this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I know I hate baths, to be quite honest. I'm a shower person, but I know that I function a lot better in terms of my physical health and in terms of, just my general outlook. I'm much better off if I have 2 magnesium baths a week. I don't often, it's a real struggle for me to do that because I just don't enjoy sitting down in the bath. I want to get out as soon as I've got in, but I'll do things like listen to a podcast whilst I'm in there and try to listen. Like, some podcasts I listen to are like half an hour, 40 minutes. So I think to myself, I'm going to listen for the duration and get lost in the podcast so that I can stay in this bath because I need it. And And sometimes it is like literally as you said, no one's going to notice if I didn't, journal for 4 minutes today, or I didn't write a gratitude list. But I know that for me, it has such a huge, like my retreat. I've got a retreat coming up on the 9th of September, and I had to really journal a lot on that, because I started to tell myself, who do I think I am to be doing a retreat? And then I had to remind myself that actually I'm in the prime position to do that. After 15 years in my career, I know damn well how to curate experiences that can enhance, improve, change, transform people's lives. But I really had to sit down and journal on that, and really have a word with myself about how much I was charging for it, and whether or not I should or shouldn't. Will people come? Won't they come? I had to really dig deep into my practices, and also channel into friendship. I've got a group of friends that we have a lot of contact on WhatsApp, and I had to share with them, because left to my own devices, I could have easily just talked. I still would have done it, but not done it. I'm talking about sharing the post about the retreat. I still would have done it, but I wouldn't have been able to put myself in a space where my intention matched what I was delivering.
And that is so key, is that sometimes people, that's why it has to be aligned. And there are some coaches that say, my prices start at, see, the police are coming to get me already. I'm talking about money. Sorry, I seem to think that there's a woman who's trying to...
She's charging what she's worth.
I'm sorry. Let's take her down the station. I'm coming. Just let me finish my podcast. But yeah, that sense of... You can have all the best business strategies in the world. You can have the beautiful sales funnels, or the checkout page, or the latest edition of Squarespace, whatever it is. But if you're not feeling it, and that's not aligned to where you're up to, God, you're never going to sell it. Because there are some coaches who I know who are probably no better than me, but they're saying, my prices start at 50 grand. Well, for me, I want people to buy houses for 50 grand. And I know that is a growth mindset. That is something that is clearly cooking with me. And maybe I don't, that's exactly what it is. Probably like, I don't feel that it's worth somebody paying 50 grand, but it's some people pay 30 quid for some nice shoes, or some people spend 530 quid.
Exactly.
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And sometimes I think that a lot of the time it is that sort of lack mentality. But sometimes it's also being aware that you want to provide a value, and you want to have a really rich, tangible sense of value. And I think anybody can pluck a figure out of the air, and some people attach value to money and think, well, if they're charging 50 grand, then it's going to be worth it. But I think sometimes you just want to be really sure and clear that you are offering value for money without cheating yourself.
And I think also you can change it. I know so many of my clients really struggle, especially that first time when they put themselves out there. Initially, like, what do I charge, and where do I market this brand, and is it going to appeal to my customer? And I think you have to just start somewhere of what feels good, even if it's less than what you would ideally charge, but just to feel it out and to get the money flowing in. Because I think sometimes we can wait so long and go, well, I'll start charging in 45 years, and actually it's not practical to do that. And as soon as somebody pays for something, you know that it works. Which
totally
is always a great thing. So how did it start with building your clothing brand and knowing that it was now the time to go for it? What did that process look like?
That process, it came and it went. But once I had decided that I had faith in myself, it was very quick because I'd had the experience of, so firstly, I knew that I wanted clothing to be part of the brand. So I had hosted a relationship and self-care panel conversation, and one of the people on the panel, who's a relationship coach, he said that one of the reasons people's relationships fail is because they lose the sense that your relationship is a source of play and enjoyment. That hit me like a ton of bricks, especially because for quite some time now, my focus has been on my primary relationship, which is my relationship with myself. And I immediately thought, Tamu, you're not thinking about yourself as your source of enjoyment and play. So when I was thinking about the business, in order for me to do it in a way that I would be able to stick with when it got difficult, when I got scared and all of that sort of stuff, I thought I have to create something which is a source of enjoyment in play and encompasses all the things that I'm interested in and enjoy.
Yes.
So I knew that it couldn't just be a clothing brand. And also with the clothes, I want my intention with the clothes is for them to be something that has meaning and has a positive impact on your well-being. I'd also had what I know now is the sort of best mistake I could have made in terms of clothing manufacturing. I had the experience of manufacturing in Sierra Leone, it not working out, being forced into a position where I needed to find a manufacturer in England. Found a wonderful woman who's based in East London who has a small factory, and she does quite big scale production, but she also does small scale production. And I made contact with a wonderful pattern cutter. So it's almost like everything that I was doing was slowly building up towards this moment.
Yeah.
So once I had done some of the inner work, because it's a continuous journey, I was ready to move, and I realized that I had to shed all of the shoulds, all of the expectation, all of the ideas that I had absorbed from around me, and just focus on making this thing a source of play and enjoyment. And I knew that everything else would follow. So I thought about the things that I'm really passionate about the things that I'm keen on and what I wasn't seeing, but not in a way where I was looking at it like, oh, bloody hell, this isn't around. What can I do to fill that void? And I was just coming across women who were approaching 40, who were like having what seemed to be like some kind of existential crisis. And I thought, well, what can I do? There's lots of people that are coaching and coaches, and they're qualified and experienced to do that. That's not what I want to do. I want to do clothing, but I don't want to have a clothing brand as such. I want to have an environment that could transport itself or lend itself to practical physical spaces. And I've had experience of organising panel discussions through my passion project, Motherhood Reconstructed. I'd had the experience of doing the clothing. So I thought, right, I'm going to look at how I can do all of those things together and be the person that takes the what. So what is going on, why it's going on, what you can do about it. And I want to be the person that delivers the how. So how can you create space to actually work on and move forward with these things that you're learning about yourself and these tools that you're learning to support you in thriving? So I knew immediately that the clothes had to be functional in a way that they supported your day. And I thought about when I'm in a rush, I reach for a jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what about if I wasn't rushing? What could I do if I had a one-piece item? I would have more time to do what I need to do in the morning to get my head in the right space, so that regardless of what the world throws at me, I can bend and flex and respond accordingly because I'm leaving my home feeling centered and grounded. Fine. Right. So the clothes have got to be
feeling good in what you're wearing, feeling like you're age appropriate, as in, not at a point where it's like, oh, I don't know if this is right, or because I don't, I think that, you know, you can look at a piece of clothing and it doesn't really matter where it's from. It's how it fits and making all of that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And I still want to be wearing cool trainers when I'm 65 bobbing around.
Of course.
And 85 and the rest. You know, my Nana is approaching 92 and she still like goes on planes and like dresses like Joan Collins, and she's always like sashaying around, you know, talking to, she's got some knee-high boots, she's got all the things.
Yes, Grandma.
Yeah, I'm actually quite jealous. Maybe that's my relationship. I'm jealous of her.
Of my nan.
Yeah, exactly. But it is that, but incredibly proud as well, because I think that we all have those reinvention times, and you know, whether that is when you get to 40 and, you know, it's fast approaching. For me, I don't want a t-shirt that says I'm 40 and fabulous, because I want to feel like that on the inside without, you know, saying it. I don't want you to see that I'm 40. I want you to see that I'm great.
Literally, I am who I am. And I just think there are lots of places, you know, I shop in lots of different places, but none of them are really speaking to me. And they're very clear that they're not speaking to me. And I thought, I want to create something where I'm really speaking to, it's like they've forgotten, you know, I say all the time, we are the generation that made sportswear streetwear. We are the generation that were, you know,
we taught you everything you know, basically.
We taught you everything you know. When you are doing your 90s throwback style, I was there live and direct. So why am I all of a sudden going to be wearing court shoes and, you know, like it just doesn't make sense to me. But at the same time, I will say I am more mindful about what I wear. I wouldn't wear the sort of revealing stuff that I would have done previously. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not judging anybody. I see plenty of women in my age group that are rocking bodycon and they look fly. I'm just not comfortable in that.
I mean, like, if I'm having to second guess whether I can sit down or not and have a good lunch, like, it's just not going to work for me.
Nicky, exactly. And also,
food comes first, always.
Food comes first, comfort. You know, I want to look nice, but I want to be comfortable. And I just thought, I want to really be intentional about what I'm designing in terms of the aesthetic and also in terms of its function. Yeah. And I don't think that because I'm using clothing to support wellness, that everything has to be like, you know, ecru and, you know, terracotta. I love those colours, but I think that we should be able to do what we want.
Again, it's about how you do it. Of like, just make it your own. Do your own thing.
Exactly. And that's why I love to share images of people that have bought one of my garments, because I love to see how people style it and people make it their own. Yeah. Because it's one complete outfit. You would think that there's not that much you can do with it. But actually, when you realise that it's about you and what you say with your essence and personality in that garment, you make it totally your own. The other day, she's on Instagram as The Wicked Jade. She's really into this really sexy, really like almost couture underwear, and she likes to express her sexuality. She wears harnesses and all this sort of stuff. She made a lilac harness to go with her lilac jumpsuit. Just that addition to the jumpsuit totally transformed that outfit from me wearing it with a pair of trainers or Block Hill sandals. It had such a different feel, and it's really beautiful to see that.
Yeah,
I really enjoy seeing it, and I really enjoy seeing women who clearly are not in their 20s or early 30s showing up in this way, still looking hot, still looking trendy, but not in that kind of I'm trying to be younger than my age.
Yes.
It's a real celebration of who I am right now.
And that sense of me and my daughter are best friends, and we go and meet men together and all the rest of it. Like, I don't need to be in that. Well, my son's too, so it's not really going to work.
Well, no, not. No, totally.
I'm happy being the age that I am, but I want to feel celebrated. And Natasha, a mutual friend of ours, and I saw her jumpsuit before I'd met you in person, and I didn't know, I hadn't seen the brand and all the rest of it, and Natasha had an important night celebrating a tribute concert for her dad, and we've got kids who are similar ages, so we see each other sort of like mums round the park type situation, or stopping our kids from wrestling or whatever. And it was so interesting because that night was such a key night for her, but also it was one of those that was quite emotional, but she had to look, basically all the emotions that we're all juggling on a day-to-day basis. She had to look together, but she wanted to look cool, but who she was and all of these things. And I remember her walking, it was at a cinema in Mayfair. I remember her walking in and going, "Oh, you made a good choice there with that out." Like, because she just encapsulated that moment of what she needed. And I thought, and there were loads of brilliant, like old sort of, I hate to say old, but like, Debbie Harry types with sort of, the women who are going, "I'm going to wear the skinny black jeans and the dark glasses and the big hair because that's what I did in the 70s and I know that works for me." But it was so lovely to see that chapter of her life being sort of captured in that moment and in that outfit.
And she looked so wonderful in it. But you know what? She could wear, and she knows me from way back, she wore one of the very few pieces that actually fit a human being that I got from Sierra Leone. But she is such a spirit that she could wear a bin bag and you would just see her shining through.
Totally.
I've got a lot of time for her. Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was in her music video at the weekend, and the brief was Goddess. I was like, sure, I can do that. Yeah, no worries.
Of course you can. I'm looking at your profile picture right now. It says Goddess to me, mate.
Oh, thanks. Goddess vibes, hashtag. But,
hashtag Goddess vibes.
So I guess, because I could talk to you all night, to be honest, but like where do you, having been through this transformation, what does the next 5 years look like?
Big
sleep.
5 years. The next 5 years for me look like I would absolutely love to have so the clothing is one element. I am, for once in my life, I'm not going to be scared to say, I am working with my friend Marla, who is a candle maker, on making, I use candles for a lot of the stuff that I do when I'm journaling. If I'm meditating, I have candles that I light if I need to be focused and really concentrate on a piece of work to unwind. So I'm working on a candle which an aromatherapy candle that will be really nourishing. And I'm working on some other things to add to the arsenal. So what I would like over the next 5 years is to have a wider range of products that support people in their wellness in a really practical way. I would like to be able to build on my retreats, so the first of which I'm having on the 9th of September, and I'd like to be able to do those somewhere hot and sunny and give us a whole week where we can just indulge ourselves and do stuff to look after ourselves. And I'd really like to have a shop. Yeah, I'd really like to have a shop. I'd really like to have a space where I am able to give people an experience. I would really like to have a space which is multi-purpose, where people can come and hang out and shop and communicate and feel a sense of community and engage in activities that support them in their wellness. That's what I would absolutely love to do. I would like to do what I'm doing online, IRL.
I would love to visit that place.
Yay!
Oh my God, that just sounds ideal. There's a place in New York which is like I can't remember what it's called, and I'm sure I'm misquoting it in some way, but it's sort of like a magazine that comes to life. So it's in a I can't remember what it's called. It's like a house.
Like that.
But basically they have a theme each month, and everything that they sell within that shop or the talks that they do is all around that theme. So it's like a magazine that comes to life every single month. So they have, it sounds great. I haven't been, but
I'm going to Google that. I really like the idea of that.
Yeah, sorry for the
really
rather peculiar anonymous description of it, but I'll think on about it. But gosh, that sounds so exciting, and I just love the fact that you're just pushing your own boundaries, and that you're going, why not? I'm going to say it out loud. I may as well.
Yeah. Before I would have, panicked and not done it, but I own that. That's something that when I initially started my foray into this sort of stuff in 2010, that's what I wanted to do, and I convinced myself that I wouldn't be able to do it. But I know, if somebody asks me what are the things that I'm really passionate about, I'm really, really passionate, and I really enjoy connection, whether that is connecting people or your connection to yourself. And I think that happens in the best way face to face. And sounds really wishy-washy, but I just really love kindness and being kind to people and sending out kindness vibes. And I think that I could really do that in a space that is a physical space. I like people. I like myself. I like my solitude, and I need that to recharge. But I definitely know that there is enough within me to be able to provide the connection, the community, the wellness, those experiences that enable you to really integrate wellness with your day-to-day in a physical space. That's really my dream.
Watch this space. My goodness. Oh, exciting times. If people want to come and find out more and connect with you and have a chat and buy a jumpsuit and listen to the podcast, where should they go?
So if you go to my website, www.live360 or alpha.com, you'll find me there, and there are links to my podcast, my social media, and everything that I do on there. I am very active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is at live360. Again, alpha, not numerical. So I'm there. I'm open for chats. I'm open for DMs. I'm open for, just us connecting, communicating, and looking at ways that we can collaborate and do the things that our hearts really want to do.
And I absolutely love your podcast. I listen to every episode, and I just love the fact that, because otherwise it feels a bit weird if I listen to my own, because I really enjoy listening to the other people, but then there's that sense of like, oh, I'm there as well. But one thing I do is I am like a weird audience member that I say things out loud. Yes, totally agree. And then I remember that I'm actually not on the podcast, which is embarrassing. So I'm glad that it's just me in my Radox bath, sort of hanging out by myself.
Because otherwise people would think that you're really, really weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But weirdness is cool. I appreciate the weirdness.
Oh, well, we're all made up of all kinds of great parts, aren't we? And it's like what kind of comes out to play. But thank you, Tamu. Oh my goodness.
I've loved it as well. And I must say that I haven't listened to an entire podcast episode of yours, but I've got that on my list for when I go on holiday. But your Instagram stories, you've delved into IGTV. They really do speak to me in ways. I really like the work that you're doing, because whether you realise it's for you or not, there's always something in there for you.
Thank you. Well, I think, it's something that all I have to do with that is to trust my instinct and go with it, because often my instinct for me, well, obviously is the right thing. And when I trust that, and I don't get distracted by what everybody else is doing, and, you know, whether they're getting off private jets or whatever they're doing in their life coachy ways. I that doesn't resonate with me. Likewise, when I was at school and the version of a woman was to get bleach blonde hair, it's coming up again, you know, big boobs, and drink Stella in the street and be all, you know, wear a belt instead of a bra. That was the image, and that didn't feel right. So thank you. I think, I just have to trust my instinct on it. And because when I do that and I stay in that flow, that's when it connects.
Amen to that.
What a brilliant way to finish. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.